I remember the sound of rain the night my father died. Not the soft, comforting kind, but the kind that felt like the sky was mourning with me. Every drop hit the ground like an accusation, and every thunderclap whispered one truth I couldn't unhear. Someone wanted him gone. My father, Richard Hale, wasn't just a businessman. He was the businessman. Everyone in the city knew him as the man who turned bankrupt companies into gold. But what people didn't know was that he had powerful enemies. Men in suits who smiled in public and stabbed in private. When the news came that his car had malfunctioned and exploded on the highway, the police called it an accident. I called it murder. And I knew exactly which family was responsible. The Devereaux. They were everything my father despised. Old money, political strings, and corruption buried under champagne smiles. Their empire stretched from real estate to law to media. And their patriarch, Charles Devereaux, had once been my father's closest business partner. Until betrayal ripped them apart. The day of the funeral, the Devereaux family sent flowers, white lilies, the kind my father hated. That's when I decided. If they thought they'd destroyed us, I'd show them what real destruction looked like. I wouldn't cry, I wouldn't beg. I'd become the storm they never saw coming. 2 years later, I wasn't the grieving daughter anymore. I was Elena Hale, or at least that's what the world still thought. What they didn't know was that I had changed everything. My name, my appearance, my circle, everything. I had vanished from the city's gossip columns and reappeared under a new identity, Elena West, a scholarship student from nowhere, studying finance and business management at Hawthorne University, the same place the Devereaux heir attended. His name was Adrian Devereaux. I'd seen him in magazines before. The media loved to paint him as the golden boy, the next face of the Devereaux legacy. Tall, charming, arrogant. He had that effortless kind of confidence that made people forgive him for being dangerous. And I hated him the second I saw him in person. The first time we met was at a charity gala hosted by the university. I was working part-time as an assistant at the event, handing out champagne flutes and pretending not to recognize the people who'd ruined my family. He walked in wearing a black tux and a half-smile that could ruin reputations. His gaze swept across the room like he owned it, because technically, his family probably did. Then his eyes met mine. For a second, I froze. I didn't mean to, but something about his stare felt like gravity. Dangerous, magnetic, impossible to ignore. He didn't look away. Neither did I. He approached the table where I stood, his smirk deepening slightly. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere but here," he said, voice low, teasing. I forced a polite smile. "I'm working, not mingling." "Still," he said, tilting his head, "someone with eyes like yours shouldn't be invisible." I wanted to roll my eyes, but my pulse betrayed me. I hated that he can make me feel anything other than rage. "Enjoy the gala, Mr. Devereaux," I said sharply, setting down another glass before walking away. But I could feel his eyes on me, even as I disappeared into the crowd. Over the next few weeks, I ran into him again and again. It felt like the universe was mocking me. He sat beside me in the university library once, asking about business law notes. Another time, he joined my friends group at lunch, casually mentioning we should all hang out sometime. He was too charming, too easy. I told myself it was all part of the plan, to get close enough to destroy him, and by extension, his family. But somewhere between late-night study sessions and unexpected smiles, the lines started to blur. He wasn't like his father, or at least That's what he wanted me to believe. One night, after a campus gala, he walked me home. The air was cold and I could see our breath in the streetlight. He asked quietly, "Why do you always keep your distance, Elena? What are you hiding from?" The way he said my name made me shiver. "I'm not hiding," I lied. "Yes, you are," he said softly. "You look like someone who's always one step away from running." That's when I realized how dangerous he truly was. Not because he was like his father, but because he could see right through me. Weeks turned into months, and I became part of his world. The parties, the private dinners, the quiet moments in his car where the city lights blurred behind us. He made me laugh when I didn't want to. He made me feel seen when I'd sworn I'd never let anyone close again. But I never forgot. Every time his father's name came up, my stomach twisted. Every time I saw a picture of the Devereaux mansion, the same one my father had once visited before everything fell apart, my hands trembled. And then one day I saw it. An old file, hidden in the archives of my father's company, the only thing of his I'd managed to recover. Inside were emails, contracts, and transaction records. Money transfers between Devereaux Enterprises and a shell corporation connected to the accident that killed my father. Proof. My pulse raced as I read through every line. The company behind the car explosion was owned by one of Devereaux's subsidiaries. The motive was clear. My father had discovered fraud in their joint project, and instead of facing exposure, they eliminated him. My hands shook as I closed the file. That was it. The truth I'd been searching for. And the path forward was clearer than ever. The next time Adrian called me, I ignored him. I couldn't face him without feeling sick. He sent messages, sweet, worried ones, but I deleted them all. Then one evening, he showed up at my apartment. No warning. I opened the door to see him standing there, soaked from the rain, his eyes a mix of confusion and hurt. "Why are you avoiding me?" he asked, voice tight. "Did I do something?" I wanted to scream, "Yes, you were born into the family that murdered my father." But all I said was, "You wouldn't understand. Try me." For a second, I almost told him. Almost. But something in me stopped. Maybe fear, maybe strategy. I wasn't ready yet. So I whispered, "Just go, Adrian, please." He hesitated, then stepped back slowly. "I don't know what's going on, but I'm not giving up on you." When he left, I closed the door and slid to the floor. Tears I didn't want spilling freely. This wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to fall for him. By summer, my plan was set. Charles Devereaux was hosting his annual charity gala at the mansion, the same place where my father's business had once been betrayed. The guest list was packed with CEOs, politicians, and heirs. And thanks to Adrian, I had an invitation. That night, I stood in front of the mirror wearing a black silk gown that shimmered like sin under the lights. My reflection didn't look like the broken girl from 2 years ago. She looked powerful, calculated, dangerous. When I arrived at the mansion, the memories hit like knives. The towering chandeliers, the marble floors, the smell of expensive perfume, all of it felt wrong. Then I saw him, Charles Devereaux. Older now, but still radiating control. His smile was thin, his handshake colder than ice. "Miss Elena West," he greeted. "Adrian has mentioned you. I see why." I smiled back, my voice steady. "It's an honor to meet you, sir." If only he knew. Adrian appeared a few minutes later, taking my hand gently, oblivious to the storm behind my smile. "You look incredible," he whispered. "Do I?" I said softly, eyes never leaving his father. "Good. I came to make an impression." The night blurred into music and champagne, laughter and lies. But my real focus was the locked study upstairs, the one that supposedly contained files no one was allowed to access. At 10:43 p.m., while the guests were distracted, I slipped away. My heels clicked quietly down the empty hall until I reached the mahogany door. It was locked, of course, but I'd come prepared. A quick slide of a pin, a quiet click, and I was inside. The room smelled of leather and power. Rows of bookshelves lined the walls, and behind the desk sat a sleek computer with the Devereaux crest. My heart raced as I plugged in the flash drive, copying files from the system. Emails, bank transfers, legal documents, everything that tied the Devereaux name to my father's death. I couldn't sleep after the gala. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the glow of the mansion lights and Adrian's confused face in that doorway. The flash drive burned in my pocket like a secret too dangerous to keep close, but too powerful to let go. By morning, I was pacing my apartment, staring at the small silver drive on my table. Inside it were files that could destroy the Devereaux empire, and possibly Adrian along with it. A knock on the door startled me. I hid the drive instantly. When I opened the door, my best friend Mia barged in holding 2 coffees. "You look like you haven't slept since the Bush administration," she said, scanning my face. "What's going on with you and the Devereaux boy?" I forced a laugh. "Nothing. He's complicated." She arched her brow. "Complicated is what people say before their lives blow up." I didn't answer. How could I? How could I tell her that the man I was falling for was the son of the man who ruined my family? That afternoon, I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. Folders opened, Devereaux Holdings, /confidential, /our Hale project. My breath hitched. Emails between Charles Devereaux and a consultant detailing how to transfer assets after Hale's removal. Documents labeled contingency plan. Bank transfers to offshore accounts. Every line was proof of betrayal. And right in the middle, a signature. Adrian Devereaux. My chest constricted. For a second, the room spun. No, it couldn't be him. He was 20 at the time, maybe a college intern helping his father's company. Maybe he didn't know. But his name was there. His signature was there. The betrayal cut deeper than I expected. I closed the laptop and sat in silence, listening to the sound of my own heartbreak. 2 days later, Adrian showed up again. I almost didn't answer, but he kept knocking. When I opened the door, he looked exhausted, eyes shadowed, jaw tense. "You've been avoiding me again. Adrian, please, just tell me what's going on. I saw you in that office. You were doing something. Are you in trouble?" His concern hurt more than anger would have. I wanted to scream at him, to throw the evidence in his face. But instead I said, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." He took a step closer. "Try me, Alina." His voice cracked on my name. That tiny fracture broke something in me. I whispered, "You're the son of the man who destroyed my father." He froze. For a moment, he didn't move, didn't breathe. "What?" My father was Richard Hale. Recognition flashed in his eyes and shock. That can't... My father said it was an accident. It wasn't. I grabbed the laptop and opened the file. He made sure of it. And you signed one of the transfers that covered it up. He stared at the screen, disbelief written all over his face. "No, that's not possible. I didn't know. I was doing what he told me. I didn't know what any of it meant." I laughed bitterly. "Of course not. Because when you're born rich, you never have to know who gets crushed under your father's deals." He flinched. "Elena, I swear I didn't." I shut the laptop. "Get out." He didn't argue. He just looked at me like the world had split in two, then walked out quietly, leaving the door half open and my heart torn between fury and grief. The next week was a blur. Gossip spread through campus, whispers about a fight between the Devereaux heir and the scholarship girl. Adrian stopped coming to classes. Then suddenly, everything changed. One evening, my inbox pinged with an anonymous message. If you care about the truth, meet me at Pier 19, 10 p.m. Come alone. The message had an attached photo, a grainy shot of my father standing with Charles Devereaux at a construction site years ago. My gut screamed trap, but curiosity won. When I reached the pier, wind whipped across the water. A black car idled near the edge. A man stepped out, older, with a sharp suit and colder eyes. Ms. Hale, you look just like your father. Who are you? I demanded. He smiled faintly. A friend of your father's, once. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that you're in over your head. The Devereaux family isn't your only enemy. My pulse quickened. What do you mean? Before I can finish, headlights cut through the darkness. The man's expression hardened. They found me. He handed me a sealed envelope. If whatever you do, trust no one, especially not Adrian. Gunshots cracked through the air. I ducked instinctively as the man collapsed beside me. I screamed, dropping the envelope as chaos erupted. By the time the police arrived, the shooter was gone, and the envelope. The next day, Adrian showed up at my door again. I was still shaking. You shouldn't be here. He said, I heard about what happened. Are you okay? I stepped back. Someone died last night, Adrian. Someone who knew about your family. He ran a hand through his hair. My father's furious. He said someone's been leaking company files. My heart skipped. Does he know it was me? Adrian's eyes darkened. He suspects. Elena, you need to leave the city. He's not the man you think he is. So you admit it now? He nodded slowly. I confronted him. He didn't deny it. He said your father was going to ruin everything, that he did what he had to do. The disgust on his face was real. I can't defend him, Elena, but I can help you. I wanted to believe him, but the image of my father's burnt car and the anonymous man's warning played in my mind. Trust no one. Still, when Adrian reached out and took my hand, I didn't pull away. He said, I'll find proof, real proof. We'll expose him together. Weeks passed. Adrian moved out of the Devereaux mansion, claiming he needed space. We met in secret, at empty diners, in his car parked by the beach at midnight. He looked different now, harder, more haunted. One night, as rain tapped on the windshield, he whispered, If I could trade my name to bring your father back, I would. The sincerity in his voice broke through the last wall I had. I leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't planned. It wasn't part of revenge. It was messy, painful, real. When we pulled away, he said, No more lies, Alina. Whatever happens next, we face it together. I nodded, but fear coiled in my stomach. Sounded like a promise fate wouldn't keep. A month later, Adrian called me at 3 a.m. His voice shook. They know, Alina. My father found out everything. He knows about us, about the files. Where are you? He said. I tried to run. He's sending people after me. I can't protect you if you stay. I grabbed my coat. Send me your location. He said, Don't. Please, just disappear. Then the line went dead. I drove anyway. The address led me to an abandoned warehouse district. His car was parked outside. Door open, engine running. Inside, papers were scattered. Bank statements, a passport, cash. But no Adrian. Then I heard footsteps. I turned, and there he was, Charles Devereaux. He looked calm, almost amused. You're a lot like your father, Miss Hale. Righteous. Predictable. Where is Adrian? I demanded. He smiled thinly. My son made a mistake. He thought love could save him. It won't. Did you kill him? My voice broke. No. He said simply, but if you don't walk away, I can't promise the same mercy for you. I stepped closer. You think you can scare me? You took everything from me. He leaned in. No, my dear. You gave it away the moment you fell for him. Then he turned and left, his bodyguards trailing behind him. I stood there shaking, the echo of his words sinking in. Love had made me reckless, and now Adrian was gone. For days, there was silence. No texts, no calls, no trace. I filed a report, but the police said there was no evidence of foul play. They said maybe he just left town. But I knew better. One evening, I returned home to find a letter slipped under my door. It was unsigned. Inside was a simple message. He's alive. Meet me where it all began. There was only one place that made sense. The Devereaux mansion. That night, I dressed in black again. The same gown from the first gala. When I arrived, the mansion was... The Devereaux empire collapsed faster than anyone expected. Within 48 hours, their name became poison. News channels looped footage of Charles Devereaux escorted by federal agents. White-collar crime, they said. Corruption, laundering, bribery. But none of the anchors knew the truth, that it wasn't just business corruption. It was blood money. And that I was the reason his legacy was burning. I watched every headline like it was a chapter of a book I'd written in rage. Except this time, the story didn't feel like victory. It felt like grief. Because while the world celebrated justice, I was hiding in a borrowed apartment with the son of the man I destroyed. Adrian hadn't spoken much since the leak. He stayed by the window most nights, staring out at the city that used to belong to his family. His jaw was tense, his eyes haunted. On the third night, I finally said it. You did the right thing. He didn't look away from the window. Did I? Yes, I whispered. You stopped him. You helped expose everything. He turned slowly. And now what am I? The son of a criminal? A traitor? My own father told me once that loyalty mattered more than truth. I guess now I understand what he meant. I stood and walked toward him. He killed my father, Adrian. I know. And every day since I found out, I've wondered if you'd ever really forgive me for being his son. I reached for him. You're not him. He looked down at me, eyes soft but broken. Then why do you still look at me like I'm waiting for you to turn into him? That silence that followed was heavier than any storm. Days turned into weeks. The scandal consumed everything. Charles Devereaux's associates were arrested one by one. Their assets froze. The empire turned to ash. But then the whispers began that Charles had escaped federal custody during a transfer, that he disappeared. Adrian tried to act calm, but I saw the fear beneath it. He'll come for me, he said quietly, and you'll come for you. Let him try. I've already survived worse. But that night, for the first time in months, I dreamed of the explosion. My father's car, the flames, the scream I never got to let out. And when I woke up, there was a note on the kitchen counter. It wasn't Adrian's handwriting. You took my empire. Now I'll take yours. CD. My blood ran cold. Adrian was gone. I called him again and again, straight to voicemail. I went to his apartment, empty. His phone last pinged near the old Devereaux estate, which had been sealed off after the investigation. Every instinct screamed it was a trap. But love doesn't listen to instincts. It listens to the part of your soul that refuses to give up, even when logic says run. By sunset, I was standing in front of the mansion again. It looked like a ghost of what it once was. Windows shattered, vines creeping up the marble. The front door was cracked open. I stepped inside. The silence was deafening. Dust hung in the air like the house was holding its breath. Then, I heard it. A faint noise from upstairs. I followed it step by cautious step until I reached the study. The same room where it all began. And there he was. Adrian, tied to a chair, a bruise blooming across his jaw. And behind him, holding a gun, was Charles Devereaux. "Ah," Charles said smoothly, "the avenging angel returns." "Let him go," I said. My voice didn't even sound like mine own anymore. It was cold, steady, lethal. He smiled. "You remind me of your father. Too moral for your own good." Morality isn't weakness. It's what separates us from monsters like you. "Monsters like me," he repeated, stepping closer. "You think you've won? You think leaking a few files ruins men like me? The system rebuilds us, always." Adrian struggled in the chair. "Father, stop this." "Quiet," he struck him across the face. "You betrayed your bloodline for a woman who used you." His words hit like bullets. Charles turned the gun toward me. "Tell me, Elena, was it worth it? All that pretending, playing my son's heart like a piano just to get to me?" Adrian's head snapped toward me. "What is he talking about?" My throat dried. "Adrian." Charles smirked. "You didn't tell him that the scholarship girl, the one who accidentally met him, was just the daughter of Richard Hale seeking vengeance?" Adrian froze. "That's not true, right?" I swallowed hard. "It started that way, but you used me?" His voice broke like glass. Tears burned in my eyes. "I loved you. I didn't mean to." "Love?" Charles spat. "You two don't understand love. Love is control, power, the ability to destroy someone and still have them crawl back." He raised the gun again. "Which one of you should I teach that to first?" My mind raced. The window behind him reflected a faint glint, a piece of broken glass on the floor. Adrian caught my eyes. A silent understanding passed between us. I took a slow step forward. "You think you're untouchable, Charles? You're already finished. The files are public. Your name is poison." He sneered. "Then I have nothing to lose." He pulled the trigger. The gunshot echoed like thunder, but not at me. Adrian had broken free, lunging forward just in time. The bullet hit his shoulder. He fell hard, gasping. I screamed and grabbed the gun as it fell from Charles's grip. The two of us struggled, years of hate colliding in one violent blur. "You killed my father," I screamed, pushing him back. "And I'd do it again," he roared. The words snapped something inside me. I shoved him with everything I had. He stumbled backwards, hitting the desk, the gun clattering across the floor, and then he fell. The sounds of his body hitting the marble echoed through the house. I stood there shaking, breathless. The gun lay inches from my foot. Adrian groaned behind me. It was over. Or so I thought. By the time the police arrived, the mansion was surrounded. Charles Devereaux was pronounced dead on the scene. The officers took statements, photos, everything. Adrian was rushed to the hospital. He survived, but the look in his eyes when he woke up told me the truth. Part of him never would. He didn't say much those first few days, just stared at the ceiling, pale and quiet. When he finally spoke, his voice was hollow. "You got your revenge." I blinked back tears. "We both did." He shook his head. "You lost something too, maybe more than I did." I sat beside him. "You think I don't know that? I didn't plan to fall in love with you, Adrian, but I did. And that's what destroyed me." He turned to look at me, eyes full of heartbreak. "So what happens now?" I hesitated. "Maybe we try to build something new, away from all this." He gave a faint, sad smile. "You can rebuild an empire, Elena, but you can't rebuild trust." He turned his head away. And that moment, I knew. The girl who came here for revenge died with Charles Devereaux. And the woman left behind was just someone trying to remember how to breathe. Months later, I stood at my father's grave for the first time since it all ended. The wind was calm. The city skyline shimmered in the distance, the same city that once belonged to monsters like Charles Devereaux. I traced my fingers over my father's name. Justice came late, but it came. Behind me, a familiar voice said softly, "You did what you had to do." I turned. Adrian stood there, no longer the golden heir, just a man who'd survived fire. I smiled faintly. "I didn't think you'd come." "I wasn't sure I should, but I needed to see you." We stood in silence for a moment. The past hung between us, like smoke, heavy, haunting, impossible to clear. "I read your statement," he said quietly. "You didn't mention me. You didn't deserve to be punished for what your father did." He nodded slowly. "Thank you." We watched the sun dip below the horizon. Then he said, "I'm leaving the country, starting over. I think you should too." I smiled sadly. "Maybe one day, our paths will cross again." He looked at me for a long moment. "If they do, I hope it's not because of revenge." And then he turned and walked away.
If you enjoyed watching this story, we would truly appreciate it if you subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us and keeps us motivated to create more emotional and inspiring stories for you.